Hi, I'm Dave Atkinson, and welcome to Life on the Straight. This 22nd installment in the Epic Remodel series covers the 2-week period of June 14th through the 27th of 2020. On Monday, the concrete guys showed up to prep the front area for the new deck components. The design of the deck features a planter box that, when filled with dirt, sits roughly halfway between the top deck surface and the ground. From the planter box dirt, it is less than 30 inches up to the deck and down to the ground, meaning that we won't need a view-blocking railing like our old deck was saddled with. Instead, we will plant shrubs and flowers that attract hummingbirds and bees, some which will grow higher than the deck surface. It won't prevent any falls, but during the growing months at least, it will provide folks out on the deck with a subtle clue that the deck stops right there. The back wall of the planter extends upward to act as a key support member of the deck. Excuse me. In addition to the planter box area being prepped, forms were placed for a long footing structure that will provide support to the deck posts. If the length looks excessive, keep in mind that the rebar reinforced footing will spread the deck's substantial weight out over a larger swath of ground, minimizing future settling. Remember what a problem that was on our old deck. Also on Monday, the laundry room sink was installed. The electrician looks like he paid the job site a visit or two, installing the back deck soffit can light fixtures along with several switch and outlet plates inside. The tile guy began the dry fit stage, laying down large format 12-inch by 24-inch porcelain tiles throughout the defined river channel that remained once the hardwood floors had been installed. Our idea was to have tile flow from the west end, the guest bathroom, down the hall, through the kitchen and pantry, and then down the hall past the mudroom to the laundry room on the east end. Our river of tile. On Tuesday, the concrete crew installed the planter box footing forms along with the rebar. Out and back, the crew sided the east gable end of the house. The tile guy continued with the dry fit layout of the floor tile. Wednesday saw the concrete truck arrive shortly before noon as it poured the concrete for the footer of the planter box as well as for the deck support footer. The concrete guys did their trowel work and inserted vertical rebar and brackets into the footings. On Thursday, the concrete crew arrived with a flatbed trailer loaded with the larger forms that would be used for the construction of the planter box. They also removed the forms around the footing pours. Inside, the tile guy began applying thin-set mortar to secure the floor tiles to the backerboard. Out back, the crew prepped the area where the concrete heat pump compressor pad would be poured. They also installed an attractive gray composite trim to the exterior of the deck's rim joists. On Friday, a portion of the planter box form was installed. The tile guy continued with his tile installation. Out back, the crew formed up the area where the heat pump pad would be poured. They also finished up with the rim joist trim panels. The countertop guys also made an appearance, installing the countertops and backsplashes for the south cabinet section in the pantry, plus the 2 bathrooms, and the sinks were also installed. Starting off the second week, our order of concrete deck pavers arrived. The concrete guys continued working on the planter box forms, and the tile guy continued work on the floor tile installation, including staging tile for the sunroom floor. The crew installed self-adhering flashing to the top surfaces of the rear deck. Later, when the concrete pavers were installed, there would be gaps to let the sand and water pass through, and the waterproof flashing would prevent rot damage to the deck joists. On Tuesday, the concrete guys continued work on the front deck forms, which included framing in where a door opening would go for later access to the below deck crawl space. Now, this may have been addressed in earlier episodes, and if so, I'll go over it again since the front deck is now going up. When excavating to prep the front deck area, the concrete contractor's backhoe encountered the footing drain piping and accidentally broke a piece out. Now, remember from way earlier how we had paid a septic contractor to blow out the accumulated sand as he was locating and clearing out the dry well. We thought that the flush water from our water softener would run through that cleaned out pipe and into the dry well, taking care of that issue. Unfortunately, when the concrete guy broke open the pipe, he found that it was packed with solid with sand, almost as if concrete had been poured into the pipe. It was now time for Plan B. Frank modified his design of the planter box so that the flush water would enter from the back side and then go down to a manifold of pipes embedded in gravel. The planter box would now perform 3 jobs: help in supporting the deck, acting as a flush water distribution center, and simply acting as a planter box. The concrete guys now had to make allowances in the forms for the flush water pipe to pass through and into the middle section. I also mentioned earlier how we worked with the electrician to provision a conduit and wiring for an optional outdoor water feature just in front of the planter box. The concrete guys had to make an allowance in the forms to let that conduit pass through, and it looks like it is just above the footing. Tuesday also included another concrete truck delivery, this time to pour the heat pump compressor pad out near the back deck. We also received a bid from Airflow for the ductless heat pump installation in the sunroom, which I will elaborate on in a future episode. Wednesday was a busy day. The tile guy finished up setting most of the interior tile, not counting the sunroom. I mentioned in an earlier episode how the cabinets above the washer and dryer were originally too long, as the lid of the washer would hit the cabinet when open, and how the cabinet guy built 2 new cabinets that would fit. Well, that left 2 already built cabinets to find a home for, and on Wednesday they were installed out in the garage. As long as the cabinet installer was on site, he also installed the cabinet poles throughout the house. It was gratifying to see how the various shapes and positions of the poles aligned with our style choices. Inside, the crew began prepping the windows for the window stools, and outside work continued on the construction of the planter box forms. On Thursday, the tile guy installed the floor tile grout, and the concrete guys wrapped up the planter box forms. Friday saw another concrete delivery, this time for the planter box. A building supply company dropped off 2 huge solid cedar beams, which will become the stringers for the 2 deck stairways. My good friend Rod also showed up with stainless steel L pieces that would create a border for the outside concrete tile pavers to butt up against. Rod and Frank went about installing them on the rear deck. Rod also brought a special piece he fabricated to go just outside of the sliding glass door, which, like the L-shaped pieces, constrain the pavers while leaving a gap for sand to fall through, and that was also installed. That wraps up 2 weeks of solid progress for our Epic Remodel project. Thank you for watching Life on the Straight, and if you'd like to follow this story as it unfolds, please consider subscribing, which is free.